What are we discussing on today's podcast, you ask? Well, it's crossover time as always with Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes, and we're doing another draft, drafting the bounce back players in 2023. Is it going to be Sandy Alcantara, number one overall? Is it going to be Trey Turner or maybe Javi's guy, Manny Machado? Stay tuned as we break it down on today's Locked On Diamondbacks crossover.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, without further ado, as we do every week, crossover time with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres, so we can do a little draft. Sir, how are you today?
I'm doing great. We are recording this after some tragedy struck in football. And we're also recording this at the time, right before we started recording this, Darvish ruled out. I shouldn't say ruled out, shut down for the rest of the season. So that's big Padres news and, continuing the pain of the team. But it's probably a good thing that they said, let's just stop this. And if anything, I mean, he's had a couple of years, so hopefully he can come back for the Padres and be good next year. It's something that I've been really high on, which is that I don't want to go big on starting pitching in the offseason necessarily and just say, you know what, betting on Musgrove to come back good. He was good this year. And betting on Darvish, that's okay. Maybe you just filter out the depth, but yeah, man,
Waka,
just
a little Waka.
Yeah, maybe bring back a little Waka action. I think that's what they're going to do. So yeah, and I imagine we're going to be taking a lot of Padres players today. I think that there's
you could do a whole draft of just Padres players.
You could probably the next draft we have to do is drafting comeback players for the Padres.
Yeah,
because it was literally every single one. But yeah, I think I'm really excited for this episode, and I always love our drafts. But
so you think
sports
Snell
world is
walks?
in chaos, and we're here to give at least the people some sense of stability. It's like, oh, all right, Millard and Javi, they're doing their draft. Yeah.
So you think Snell walks in free agency then? You don't think he's coming back?
I think he costs too much, and I wouldn't want to do it.
And Hader's
because we're already spending too much too. So
yeah, and Hader, he's a free agent too, right?
Yeah, boy.
Oh, he might get a little bag too, but he's a closer.
Yes, sir, boy.
Okay.
I think he gets what Edwin Diaz got and change. That's just usually how the market works, and especially considering that he's been more consistently dominant. Diaz has had better a couple years that are better than seasons that Hader has ever had, but he's also had some weird ones in there. Hader's been basically excellent outside that 3-week period last year that he forgot how to pitch. So I imagine he's going to command a chunky contract. So we'll see if the Pods pony up. I'm not big on paying for relievers that much, so we'll see. But otherwise, yeah, I'm curious to see how that kind of plays out, man. A lot of questions for the Padres.
Yeah, if you just take out Hader's 2022 season, the last 2 years, he's got a sub 1.3 ERA.
Yeah,
actually,
it's ridiculous.
Just insane. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Another draft, as we always do with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres, drafting the bounce back players in 2023. And as Javi always says, you say tails never fails, right, sir?
Tails never fails, even though it always fails me on here.
So we got the nickel today. We're going to be flipping it.
Okay.
Ooh, flip. Whew, look at that. For Javi, tails never fails. Wow.
Cool. Wow, there's a lot of different directions I could go with this.
I really wanted the number one pick too.
Yeah, I mean,
start us off strong here.
We're joking about it, but I mean, I have to do it this way, right? And the only question I think is which Padre I take, to be honest with you. And I'm going to go with the guy that I slandered on Twitter the other day. And if for those who don't know, and also for reference, I was kidding to everyone who was treating this tweet seriously. Treating this tweet. I tweeted yesterday that Manny Machado, when the Padres are down by 5 or more runs, is slashing 672, 890 with a 1543 OPS. I was kidding. That was me making a joke about how Manny Machado's empty stats this year are pretty astounding. He always homers when you're down by 7 or you're up by 7. So that's been a big thing. But in general, I'm going to go with Manny Machado. Look, there's not much to say. This is one of the more consistent players out there. This guy's been a beast for a long time. In my opinion, he should have won the MVP last year. I'm on the record about that. Not that Goldschmidt wasn't deserving. You're a former boy. But
Mhm.
for me, like Machado's just been so consistent. I think he got a little bit over aggressive there. I think that the season just became an avalanche and there was more pressure. And even still, like he still managed to hit 28 home runs. That still means something, even if a lot of them didn't come at the right time. He's been one of the least clutch players on the entire team. It's frustrating, but he's 30 years old. He's not old. He's always got the defense there for you. And he's had some seasons before. In 2019 with the Padres, he only put up a 2-win season. He was very bad in the second half. And in that year, he put up 32 home runs. Like even his worst seasons are still going to be ones that give you a lot of power and great defense. In terms of walk to strikeout ratio, he's one of the best players in the league at that. When you take into account that he also hits for power and he's able to give you on base stuff and hit for power, like it's impressive, right? And draw a bunch of walks. And I just don't see him taking a nosedive. I think that this is a potential Hall of Fame player. If he does it again next year, then maybe we could start freaking out. But until then, I think he's at minimum just going to be better than this year. Maybe put up a season similar to what he did in 2021, where he wasn't incredible. He was just more steady and solid throughout the whole season, but he never got hot. But even that would be a bounce back. And I don't know. I don't see it. And again, let me be very clear that stat last night was not real. He's not hitting, like a superhero when the Padres are down by 5, but it's not far off in terms of just the general output of not being clutch and refusing to drive in runs or hit home runs with people on base. As we've talked about, I think on this podcast before, clutch stats, I don't think they translate year to year as much, at least in the regular season. So I think Machado will bounce back. So that's my number 1 pick.
Man, coming back, getting your stats in garbage time. We call that the Kirk Cousins archetype. Sad to see Manny Machado has been that mode this year, but Manny Machado is very high on my list for this because, like you said, he's still in his prime at 30 years old. Now, it is that first year of that, massive extension. And you have to wonder because, in the offseason, there was a lot of talk and that contract was kind of looming over this whole situation. So I wonder how much that affected his slow start to the season, because I feel like his numbers probably have gone up in the second half of the year. I feel like he was probably really struggling those first 3 months of the season. Probably looks a little bit more Manny Machado-ish, at least by the numbers the last couple months. But I think he's going to have a bounce back season next year. I think he will. I'm not ready to write off Manny Machado at just 30 years of age. Still, the numbers statistically aren't terrible for Manny Machado. He's having a down year from what, like you said, you thought he was the MVP last year. He's not as good as that, but he's still putting up borderline all-star level numbers this year. Still got some power, still got some ribbies. The OPS isn't terrible. So Manny Machado, I think, is a heavy favorite to bounce back next season. But I wouldn't have taken him number 1 overall. I'm not mad that you did. I think he's worthy at number 1 overall. For me, I would have went with the other San Diego Padre, though, in this exercise. I'm taking your guy. Yes, he was suspended a little bit to begin the season, but I think that plays into the narrative as to why he should bounce back for next season, because even though he was suspended, this is still someone that's going to play 135 games, near 140 games this year. Even with that suspension, he's still going to play basically a full season because he hasn't really missed time this year with injury. And if you look at the numbers for Tatis, they're solid. They're kind of Manny Machado-esque with more athleticism because of his athleticism. So he's got the speed in there, but the numbers for him aren't exactly jumping off the page. And I think Tatis is quite literally one of the best players in baseball. I don't think that's a surprise to hear you to hear that from me. He's one of the faces of baseball. I think Tatis, when healthy, when he's right, full season, he's like a 40-40 potential guy. He's an MVP level player. And I think Tatis this season, I just think the whole Padres situation just went off the rails this year. And I think you could literally draft 5 players from this team to bounce back next year. And I think Tatis is going to be the biggest benefactor of the bounce back effect in 2024.
It's funny because a big thing with him is he's actually, unlike Machado, been pretty decent in high leverage. I think he's been a 300 hitter in high leverage situations last time I checked. And his wins above replacement is still really solid too. He's sitting at a 4 right now, which is big. It's really big. But a big part of that has been the defense. He's probably going to win the Gold Glove. So that's been a big part of it. But as a batter especially, if you look at his career, 151 WRC plus his first year, 151 the next, 158 the next after that, then 113 this year. I think he's been getting a little bit unlucky. His weighted on base stats and expected stats, the difference between what it is versus what it's expected is so large that usually portends of a bounce back, especially since, he still hits the ball really hard. He's still young. He's still got the athleticism. So that one's kind of a slam dunk. I really do think, in my opinion, I almost don't view him as that way because I was already like kind of expecting like Tatis might struggle a little bit. He's been a year off, shoulder surgery, all those things. But yeah, I think you're right. And maybe this is an Acuna situation where Ronald Acuna Jr. was really solid last year, but he wasn't incredible. And he was not like what he is this year, obviously. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that first year, getting back into the swing of things. Acuna famously, I think, tore his ACL. I think it was like 2 seasons ago or whatever. So, maybe that's the case for Tatis. Just a bounce back from injury and in his case, suspension.
Yeah, fun sleeper MVP pick if you're going that Ronald Acuna route then for next season. If you're going to say the year after the suspension, full season back for Tatis, maybe can win the MVP. And like you said, I'm just looking at the clutch stats where runners in scoring position. Tatis is like a 300 hitter, like 900 OPS. Manny Machado is literally putting up like the same slash line with runners in scoring position. So at least in the high leverage moments, those bigger situations, you can say Tatis has come through for you in the clutch. But how about number 3? Are we just going to continue the train of drafting San Diego Padres here? I mean, we really can.
It's tempting, but no, I'm gonna go with the knockout king. I'm gonna go with Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians.
Oh, I was gonna say Tommy Pham's having a good season. I don't know what you're talking
No.
about.
But again, this is a guy past few years, WRC plus over 140, 167 in, I believe it was 2019. And then 2021, he had a 6 wins above replacement. This year, is this a little bit of a cheat? Yeah, because he's still been good.
Yeah.
He's going to get you. He's got 22 home runs on the year. He's got 24 stolen bases. A little bit of that Tatis thing going where he's got the counting stats, but he hasn't been hitting for the same amount of power. He hasn't been as excellent, but he's only age 30. So I do think he's going to be bounce back. And because Cleveland doesn't really have too many other players that are like superstar caliber, it's just hard for me to believe that they're going to miss this bad on extending this guy. So I'm going to go with Ramirez there, whose highlight of his season, unfortunately, has literally been the fight with Tim Anderson. So that'll be my second pick.
And he's another guy he's been in baseball a while, but only 30 years of age. Like literally turned 30 not too long ago. Yeah. So this is still someone smack dab in the middle of his prime. I think the crazy thing, every time I look at his stats, it's always the steals that get me because this is someone when you look at him on TV, like he's a thicker, more heavy set 5'9", no stocky 5'9". And every time I look, I'm like, damn, he finished the year with like 25, 28 stolen bases. Like I don't consider him a burner, but somehow he gets those bags. So just credit to his really high IQ on the base paths there. And he's someone that also sneakily want to watch out for as like a trade candidate over the next couple of years. Just that Cleveland Guardians team, they're so young. If they don't really take off over the next couple of years and they're like, you know what, I just kind of retool around this younger core that we have, maybe Jose Ramirez becomes a trade target over the next couple of years. Just something I'm throwing out there. But number 3, maybe a little high for my liking because I do think the list of disappointing players from this season could be kind of deep because next up for me, I'm going with a guy. I'm not just expecting a bounce back. I want him to bounce back because of a change of scenery. I want this guy to be traded in the offseason. There was potential rumors of him being moved at the deadline, but the package to get him probably would have just been too expensive. I'm going with Dylan Cease of the Chicago White Sox, who last season he finished second in Cy Young voting last year, even got MVP shares because he was so dominant last year. A 2.2 ERA, 184 innings pitched, over 200 strikeouts. Like Dylan Cease, absolutely dominant last year. And this is someone still in the prime of his career, only 27 years old. But that Chicago White Sox situation over the last few years has just been so dysfunctional with the Tony La Russas of the world. You got your star players in the lineup in and out. Tim Anderson, people are fighting out there. The White Sox probably have the worst vibes of any team the last couple of years. I think for Dylan Cease, I'm not just expecting him to bounce back because of how bad he was this year. I want to bake in the fact that there's a little possibility that he could even be moved. Maybe he gets really disgruntled and we see, a star MLB player say, you know what, get me out this situation. That's what I'm hoping Mike Trout does pretty soon with the Los Angeles Angels. So I'm taking Dylan Cease here, the number 4 pick.
Yeah, I mean, that guy was a strikeout just machine, and it's possible. I mean, I personally don't know why the White Sox aren't trading him. They have no farm. They're in the worst division in baseball, and they're still not anywhere close to the top. And you just have 3, not even 3. I'm just going to say 2 because I don't count Eloy Jimenez. I think that guy is just all flash and no substance at this point of his career, at least.
I like that. That's a
Sure,
take.
he's either getting hurt or there's something weird with locker room, and someone's saying reports that he's lazy, and then he comes up, gets hurt. Millard, this guy managed to get hurt in the fight between Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez. Did you see that with him like running off? Like,
I remember that. It was like his leg or something, right? Didn't he, like hurt his
it's like
leg?
he was like hopping off. I'm like, this guy, man, how? You know what I mean?
That.
Like, that's just incredible stuff for my guy Eloy. I don't know how they don't trade. At least trade Dylan Cease. That part. All right, you want to keep Robert around. He's young, and position players is different. I don't know how they didn't trade Dylan Cease, but that would be the only thing that makes me wonder whether or not he's going to bounce back. Is it just so cursed in the White Sox world that like he will only be free and return to Dylan Cease moment? Is he going to pull a James Harden and like stink until you're forced to trade him elsewhere? Maybe, I don't know, but it's still a good pick because he was second in Cy Young last year, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Please hashtag free Dylan Cease from the Chicago White Sox. Javier and I will continue our draft of drafting the bounce back players for the 2024 season. I just realized I have 2023 written on the little graphic that we got there.
Yeah.
That's a mistake by me. But real quick, before we continue the draft, I just need to tell our listeners about this little thing called, oh my God, I didn't even download the overlay, but don't worry because Apple, my Wi-Fi is so quick. I'm going to get the overlay up for the audience. Boom, there it is. Let's talk a little bit about Jace Medical because everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout. JaceMedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Promo code Locked On. And don't forget to catch every D-backs and Padres pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and either search up Diamondbacks or Padres. Now let's get back into the crossover with Locked On Padres here, and we're continuing our draft. Drafting the bounce back players for not 2023, but 2024. Manny Machado was the number 1 pick by Javi, then Tatis, Jose Ramirez, Dylan Cease. Now Javi's back up with the number 5 pick.
Oh man, do I throw a meme one out there yet? What do you think?
I mean, you usually like to say for the last round, but if you want to get a little spicy early, why not?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, let's do it for the content.
I'm gonna do one more that I'll do after this.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Do it for the content. All right, fine. I'll do my first meme. And that will be none other than the one we drafted first overall a few weeks ago in the worst contracts. I'm going to the Motor City. That's right. The Detroit Tigers. Javier Baez, ladies and gentlemen. And here is my reasoning.
Unhinged.
You, sir, and many others, they say Cody Bellinger's cooked. Look at him. He's done. And we've seen the numbers on Cody Bellinger. I mean, that guy was, what did he have? Like a 67 WRC plus, and then after that, it wasn't much better. It was worse, right? Look at him now. He's an MVP. I am only picking this purely based on Millard. I don't believe that it's possible for this guy to be this bad. Like, I just refuse to believe it. He is a bounce back to average. That is what I'm expecting, but it counts. You know what I mean? He's still got the power. I think he could still field usually. I'm basically banking on this would be one of the more historically, at least in my lifetime, like bad contract players who became worse than like every player in the league, like that, especially without any injuries. I just think he's so bad. I don't believe it. You know what I mean? 117 WRC plus of one in 2021, catches fire with the Mets. 88 WRC plus last year. He still manages to put up almost 2 wins as a player, mostly because of his defense. And this year, a 58 WRC plus is 124 games. Part of me is just like, I'm only picking him because allegedly he could be a good defender. We saw what Bellinger just did. And I just don't think it's possible for you to be this bad. I don't. Because if he continues this, Detroit might actually just have to eat the contract. And that would be crazy. That would be crazy. It's either that or he's just going to sit on the bench because it's rough. It's rough. So I'm picking him. I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm picking because I just think he's been. If he was like a 98, you know what I mean? I'd be like, yeah, he's just bad. But like 50s, like he's like Austin Nola level. No offense to the guy. I know he had some eye problems. You guys get what I mean. Isan Diaz. Just trying to name bad players now. A bunch of the guys on Oakland. He's that bad. I'll bet on at least a little bit of a bounce back to normalcy.
Nick Ahmed level bad. Javier Baez. Yeah. I mean, if you're thinking about this from like a gambling FanDuel perspective, like you should probably drafted the dude with the greatest odds to have a bounce back next season because I don't think anyone's picking him. I mean, I think more people will pick this dude to be out the league next season to like probably make even an all-star team. But it wasn't that long ago. He was like solid where it was like, okay, I can see why the Tigers signed him because he was just back in 2021. I mean, just look at the peripheral numbers. I mean, 31 home runs, 18 stolen bases, 800 plus OPS. Like, if he's going to do numbers like that, like you can definitely work with
5-6 win player. You know, like he was at least. Can he be a 2.7? You know, like I think it's possible.
Possible. Will he be opting out of his contract? Probably not. He probably wants the money from Detroit, lock it in, guaranteed. Some of the advanced numbers, more ground balls, less hard contact, but the strikeout percentage has gone down the last 2 seasons in a dramatic way. So he is progressing a little bit. There is some linear progression with Javier Baez. So Javier takes Javier there. Not mad at that one if he wants to go in that direction. Baez, I actually looked at him, didn't even write him down on my long list because I was like, he's done. But yeah, Cody Bellinger, I think he had like a 2-year sample size where he looked done. So that's a good comparison if you're going to make the case for why Javier Baez could bounce back. But now for me at the number 6 pick,
give the people a real pick.
I'm gonna give the people a real pick. This one, I'm gonna just, because I like to win things. I like to win drafts. I'm just gonna keep it serious and just play to, my personality here. I'm going to pick a guy who we've discussed it as, is he potentially the most overrated player in Major League Baseball? Because he had that one season where he did keep up and go back and forth with Shohei Ohtani in the home run race. When you get to the home run derby, this is one of the best players to pick. But has he actually put together a season outside of 2021 where from start to finish, you're like, this is undeniably one of the greatest players of baseball? Not really. We all know his father, Vlad Guerrero Jr., or senior, I should say. But I'm drafting Junior here because 2021 all-time season, second MVP voting. 2022 was also pretty good, but nowhere near the level we saw in 2021. And they saw this season just has regressed. That's the word I want to use. The past 3 years from that MVP level season. And now this year, he may not even crack 25 home runs with the body size and body profile he has. He should be clearing 40 home runs. He should be in that Albert Pujols mode, one of those big, stocky power first baseman, Prince Fielder types every single season. Vlad Guerrero, he's in the smack middle of his prime. He is only 24, 25 years old, literally 24 years old, 24 and a half years old, but 1.3 WAR player, just not good enough for Vlad Guerrero Jr. When we've seen him quite literally be as good as an MVP level player, and the fact that he's just like a borderline all-star, I'm expecting big bounce back. Hopefully next season he puts it all together.
It's funny because some friends of mine called me crazy for thinking that we overrate Vladdy just a little bit.
A little bit.
They've called me crazy for that at Byron Buxton as well, who may or may not be getting drafted soon.
Buxton, Eloy Jimenez, if you want to make that comparison. That's another Eloy.
This was going to be my next pick. There is a great piece I recommend everyone checking out by Mike Petriello of MLB.com. 11 theories explaining Vlad's confusing 2023 season. It's very numbery, but it's really interesting numbers because no one really knows. He even includes one of the reasons being he misses the home run jacket that the Blue Jays used to have. It's a really fun article. I recommend everyone check it out because and this is why we're not like in front offices and whatnot, but all of the numbers you usually look to, hard hit rate, is his BABIP really low? Is he getting unlucky in that regard? Is he pulling the ball, or is he not pulling? Is what's the word? Are most of his pulled balls not going in the air and they're just going on the ground? Not really. All in this article really breaks down that it's not very clear. In fact, this probably should have been the bounce back, quote unquote, season, because he was, MVP candidate outside Ohtani in 2021, and last year still almost puts up a 3-win season and hits 30 bombs. Well, this year he has not done that, right? So there's it's so fun. I really recommend everyone go check it out on MLB.com. 11 theories explaining Vlad's confusing 2023 season. So I recommend that. But yeah, none of the immediate things seem to justify it. So maybe it's just one of those weird lost seasons. Maybe, Bryce Harper was a little bit weird after winning his MVP, or at least he won the MVP. His follow-up season was a little bit weird. Then everyone was like, oh no, did they find him out? We'll see. He's still hitting the ball hard. He's still way too talented. So I'm going to say that. But in all, yeah, I do think that for the majority of Vlad Jr.'s career, he has been a little bit overrated, just a little bit, because when you look at it, he's basically only had one top 5 season. And like everyone who plays fantasy baseball, he's been in the top 10 for drafting, or or top 30 if you count his rookie year, like ever since then. And he keeps getting picked that high without the results. So I think it's a great pick, but I will say he's weird. It's not as obvious. And I would have thought that with how hard he hits the ball, that it would have been obvious that he was bouncing back next year, but we'll see, because it really hurt the Blue Jays this year too, for him to be struggling as much as he did. But great pick, sir. Love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was looking at the advanced stats as you said that. And it's like exit velocity over 90, hard hit percentage above 50, the ground ball rates back to that MVP level. He strikes out at a career low rate this year. So it's like, what's going on? Why is this guy not producing at an MVP level once again? But that's why I drafted him here. Great pick by me. Javi, how are you going to respond though?
Yeah, another reason they brought up was like that weird stadium that the Blue Jays had to hit in during COVID. Like, was that part of it? So again, highly recommend everyone goes read that article if you're a baseball super nerd and just want to know why the heck is this guy doing well.
Javi, actually, I almost forgot Javi. Before you draft, actually, if you want to bet on Vlad Guerrero Jr. to potentially win the MVP next season, there's no better place to do that than FanDuel.com, because get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. What a sweet deal. YouTube TV got that quad box. You could put Red Zone with 3 other games. You're basically not missing any of the action. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is super easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. Best believe I hit that SGP, same game parlay, D-backs money line, Zach Gallen over strikeouts, Corbin Carroll RBI, hits maybe 10% of the time, but when it does, I got a smile on my face. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And don't forget to catch every D-backs and Padres pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and either search up Diamondbacks or Padres. Now we're here to wrap up our draft of taking bounce back players for the 2024 season. And to recap so far, Javi had the #1 pick, snake draft, Machado, Tatis, Jose Ramirez, Dylan Cease, Javier Baez to Javier. Then I take Vlad Guerrero Jr. with #6. And now you're back up with #7, sir.
Meme going to make up for my just ridiculous. What'd you say? Sorry.
I said meme. Is it another meme time? Meme time?
No, not meme time. I'm going to make up for the meme. And I'm going to give the people what they want. Another Padre. He was the big signing off the offseason. He was super unexpected. And I know that sounds weird because the Padres are the ones that make the big splashes. But given that they had just traded for Soto, it was a little bit surprising and something that I was just so excited by how wild it was that maybe we didn't realize at the time that they even need to do this. But nonetheless, it is Xander Bogaerts, 2-time World Series champion with the Red Sox, one of the more consistent, steady bats in Major League Baseball for a long stretch. And I'm not just saying that this guy was at minimum like I'm looking at it right now. This guy was a 4-win player basically every single year outside of the 2019 season. He'd gotten better every year, got his defense better last year, and his season's been bad. It hasn't been atrocious. I wish he could have had a bounce back similar to Trey Turner. But the big thing with him this year has been just the wrist ailment. Ever since he got hit by that one pitch, things fell off for him dramatically. He started off great, but then finished, the first half of his season, especially pretty poorly. But in the second half, Xander Bogaerts hasn't been terrible. It's just been his inability to be consistent and hit with runners on. With runners on first and second, you know what Xander Bogaerts is hitting this year, Millard?
What is it? What is it?
He's hitting 98.
What do you mean,
as
like
in under 100?
Oh,
Under 100.
That's not good, huh? That's
Slugging 171.
Oh, 171?
With runners on first and third, do you know what he's hitting this season?
I mean, if that was first and second, I'm going to go with like 75. 75?
167 with first and third. And for the record, in the 15 or 13 play periods is when the bases are loaded, he's hitting under 100. So, I noted this before, there was a period in which Gary Sanchez in 50 less games had more RBIs than Xander Bogaerts. Look, in the second half this year, he's actually been a lot better. He's been on fire for September, which is a nice sign, even if it's too late. And a lot of people, rightfully Padres fans, are like, this is annoying. Like, where was this before? But even still, first half, 253, 339, 392 slash line. That's a 107 WRC plus. Certainly not worth the money Padres got. Then after that, second half, 301, 345, 472 slugging. That's the Xander Bogaerts that you want. A steady, good bat who rips balls into the gap. He's that guy that the analytics haters, people who don't like analytics, will like because he doesn't necessarily hit for home runs. He's just bat to ball, always there. Maybe they figure out his treatment for his hand or his wrist, I should say. But evidenced by his second half and especially September, combined with those numbers that I just mentioned with you in specific base situations, it's too low for me to believe that that's going to continue next year. If he becomes just average in those situations, he's a better player. So I think that he's basically a guarantee to be better next year, as far as I'm concerned. I'm feeling pretty bullish about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and Bogaerts was someone that was like number one on my offseason list this past year when the D-backs were pretty heavily linked to Bogaerts. I really wanted him in the building. Little Lawler, Xander Bogaerts left side of the infield. That would have made me really happy. But then he went over to San Diego, and I was jealous. That first month of the season, I have the numbers here. Yeah. In April, March, Bogaerts was 308 with 914 OPS those first 30 games of the year. So, like, you were watching the Padres. You're like, yeah, Machado sucks. Tatis isn't here right now. But you're like, dang, Bogaerts is out here carrying. And then he went like on a 3.5 month slump. But yeah, he's starting to heat up right now. Maybe that power, I think the power department is probably where I'm going to be a little concerned with Bogaerts, because I don't know if he's going to get back to that 30 home run guy that we saw a few years ago. But I still think this is someone that could be a 300 consistent contact machine that just sprays doubles all over Petco Park. Like, I still think there's a version of Bogaerts where he's like 18 to 22 home runs, a 300 average, and just spraying doubles all over the field and really being a run contributor for you in that middle of the lineup. So I wouldn't write off Bogaerts. And another guy, when you talk about Bogaerts, another guy that's been in baseball for like a decade, only 30 years old, just like a Machado. These guys broke in at like 19, 20, 21 years old. So Bogaerts, veteran, playoff proven, two-time World Series champ. Love him to bounce back potentially next season. Of course, I grew up a Red Sox fan too, so Bogaerts is someone that I followed back when he was like coming from, I forget where.
You didn't take it. I'm surprised you didn't take him, to be honest with you. I'm really shocked.
You know, he's
my meme
on
pick threw you off. It threw you off.
He's on the list. I think it's because when I think bounce back, I think there's guys that could bounce back and have bigger statistical seasons maybe than a Xander Bogaerts, because I do think Bogaerts is a good candidate. I just think the bounce back, like when I think of the rubber band effect, like if Vladimir Guerrero bounced back, like that's an MVP level player. I don't know. Bogaerts still all-star level, but I don't know if he's winning the MVP, which is the perfect segue for my next pick at number 8 overall. Why not just take the reigning NL MVP and former face of the Arizona Diamondbacks? Look at how this draft is just falling to me. Tatis, Dylan Cease, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and now Paul Goldschmidt. If this was a real fantasy team or roster like this season, your team might just be average, but I would take this core as a roster and as a major league team, starting off as my foundation, because Paul Goldschmidt, not even having like a terrible season, 270 average, 800 OPS, but the power from the last couple of years hasn't been there. The hitting just hasn't been as good this season. That whole Cardinals organization had just been dysfunctional this year. I think Paul Goldschmidt has still been good this year. But he's coming off an MVP season where he had it wrapped up near the All-Star break. Like, this guy was pacing for the Triple Crown the entire season. And then he kind of came back to earth a little bit this year. I still think he's been an All-Star level player this year, but considering where he was last year and even the last couple of years, like, he was MVP 6 in 2021. I don't even think he's going to finish. I mean, obviously the Cardinals suck, but even if he was better, I still don't think, or even if the Cardinals are better, I still don't think he would get like top 10 MVP consideration this season with how he's played. So Paul Goldschmidt, even though he's not struggling as much as some of these other players I have on my list, considering he was an MVP last year, I'm taking him this year.
Just electric stuff.
Thank you.
Electric stuff, sir.
I come to win. I come to win.
The one thing about him, he's obviously got to consider someone like Goldschmidt, and it could be just one of those like, and I really do wonder sometimes if this is something we underrate, like where like Jeff McNeil of the Mets is a good example, where it's like everyone stinks, so everyone kind of it filters throughout and throws people off as possible.
I believe that for sure. Yeah.
Paul Goldschmidt's a great example. My only reason I didn't pick him is just because 35. He's getting up there in age, so it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if it's like that was the last elite, amazing season. He wins an MVP that should have gone to Machado. That's fair. Then after that, he just becomes solid, really good player that you definitely want on your team, but not quite the same level. Still, though, it would also wouldn't shock me if he comes back and is awesome next year. One of the most underrated stars in the sport since he came up, to be honest with you.
Say that, yeah.
Like basically since he came up, and especially since, in my opinion, 2014. Like the year after he put up his first like elite season, when he put up a 6-win season. And then after that, he still wasn't being talked about. So in my opinion, that's the guy. And I like the pick, man. It's great, but it's not as good as my pick.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll see in a second. But when Goldschmidt does retire, we're going to have a conversation about the Hall of Fame, because top three MVP finishes plus an actual MVP award, plus a couple more like top 6 finishes. Like he's got a lot of MVP shares. He's going to have big numbers when he retires. So he's going to be a guy who's very curious when his name gets called on the ballot, and quietly too, he's gonna have like 225 stolen bases from like the first.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah. Like, also a unique player, like freakishly athletic. I mean, you mentioned the stolen base. This is a guy who stole 32 stolen bases one year.
Yeah,
like that's nuts. And just in general, the base running with him has always been very good. You don't get that. First basemen are like huge lumbering guys who hit you a bunch of home runs, and you don't really have to worry about if they could play defense because first isn't as valuable. So I think from the unique factor of him, that might also push him over the edge too. So that's definitely a Hall of Fame race that I'm going to be watching very intently as well. I agree.
Yeah, I just want to go on record. My last pick will be a meme pick, so I just want you to know that before you make your pick, Javi. So do what you need to do here.
Well, my pick's going to be a meme one too.
Okay,
I mean, I have to.
Okay.
I have to.
Okay.
We'll include another guy that I'm good. I'll probably pick another Padre, but for now, Millard, I'm going to list for you by year since 2015 this pitcher's ERA.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think I might know who
2015.
But let's
you probably will know. You probably will know. 3.59, 4.78, 3.54, 2.37, 3.87, 3.28, 4.63, 3.25, and then 4.64 this year. Do you know who I am talking about?
I think because we discussed him about how he's like an every other year player, like on a podcast a couple weeks ago, I'm going with Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Aaron Nola.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen.
Baseball trivia master.
And before Padres get up and be, well, do you think the Padres should sign him? Not necessarily, because then we would have to worry about the year after next year when he falls off again. So, look, there aren't it's not the best stuff in the world, but he has good stuff, Aaron Nola. Like, this is a guy who, for a bunch of years, one thing that I think was so impressive about him is that he threw all of his pitches like basically the same amount. So he had 4 pitches that he was coming after you with. And that's usually a good sign, but he's just been, I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know what it is. Maybe could it be bad defense in Philadelphia, with Schwarber and Castellanos? Does that not help? Sure. But his FIP indicates that, getting unlucky with the defense or anything like that. This is a guy who every year like he has the stuff. His strikeout rate has gone down this year from 29 to 25. That's the lowest it's been in a while. But nonetheless, I'm just going for the every other year theory. I'm not saying I want him going forward, but I just like that he's a guy who has 4 pitches and even a fifth at times. Just so unique as a pitcher. Maybe if he goes to a different team, they're going to say, you know what, man, forget the rest of these pitches. How about you just focus on 3? Maybe that's what happens, and maybe they figure him out. So I'm going with the every other year theory. I'm going to say Aaron Nola of the Philadelphia Phillies, who at one point preseason was probably projected to be the number 1 starting pitcher in the market. Now it's going to be Blake Snell. I'm going to say Aaron Nola goes with the every other year theory.
That's a good one. I mean, Nola has struggled this year. And just so weird when you see those kind of pitchers. I think Josh Beckett was also kind of like that, where it's like every other year. Yeah, it was like
Red Sox.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great Red Sox pull by me. But these players are always so weird where it's like, why can't you just be consistent year after year? Because like even if you look at just like the awards, it's like, yeah, it's either a Cy Young like top 5 finisher, or he's like not even an all-star that year, which is kind of crazy. So I do like that pick for you at your number 9 pick. I think that's your last pick there, Javi. Aaron Nola to round it out for you. So real quick, Javier's draft. Manny Machado, Jose Ramirez, Javier Baez, Xander Bogaerts, and then Aaron Nola to round it out.
Baez thing is so funny.
Baez pick is phenomenal.
That's where I lose.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the odds, though, I mean, if that one hits, you're coming home with a jackpot. If all of a sudden,
I know, right?
That Cody Bellinger season, that's the best value on the board right there. So that's a fun one. I might take the second best value on the board right here because, I mean, we're talking about the bounce back factor. That ceiling might not be as high as some of the guys like a Paul Goldschmidt or Vlad Guerrero Jr., but this is the one that means a lot to my heart because he was traded away from my team. I thought he was going to do a lot for the Toronto Blue Jays this season, and instead, offensively, he has not been that guy. He has not taken the step forward like I thought he was going to have this season. I thought he was going to be one of the breakout players this season because he's a guy with 30-30 potential. He's one of the best defensive outfielders in all of baseball, can even catch a little bit. One of the most rare hybrid position players we've ever seen in the sport. Last season with the D-backs, 27 home runs, 16 stolen bases, but this year, only 16 home runs and 15 stolen bases in about the same amount of games. I'm taking Dalton Varsho right here. I thought he was going to be my boy. I thought he was going to be one of those missing pieces for the Blue Jays, both defensively and also offensively, with how dynamic of a player he is, from the chaos he can create on the bases to the power he has at the plate. Dalton Varsho can do a lot, and unfortunately, we have not seen that versatility outside of his defensive ability this year. Offensively, we have not seen a ton of it. Really disappointing season from Dalton Varsho. Is he the best player I have written down on this list? No, but he's the one that means the most to me personally. So that's why I have to take him with the final pick of this draft.
I like it, man. And I appreciate you going homerism.
Yeah,
it's always the way to go for the last pick, unless you're me.
Yeah, you usually get in like the middle round. You like a nice, you like a nice Sonny Gray 4th overall. Please come on down. Which I don't hate.
Love roasting the Sonny Gray pick.
I love
when we did the worst trades. I think, right? Yeah.
It's I love that pick. I'm pro anytime making fun of the Yankees, so I like that pick a lot. Any honorable mentions though for you that you really debate?
Yeah. Yu Darvish. We mentioned him before.
Yeah.
He's being shut down. If we follow recent history, if this is suggesting that maybe he was hurt throughout, he is an older pitcher. Last time that happened, he had a poor season for the Padres, and the next year when he was healthy, he bounced back. So maybe next year he'll be good. And if there's anyone you can bet on to kind of age a little bit gracefully, I think Yu Darvish is a decent one. Giancarlo Stanton.
Oh,
still hits the ball really hard.
He does.
He still nukes the crap out of the ball. Can he at least be just an average offensive player who's a DH and low key is probably going to get to 500 home runs for his career? Yeah, why not? I'll take a shot on Stanton. I'll always take a shot on a guy who hits the ball as hard as someone like him. So he's on there. Andres Gimenez of the Guardians, just because of that huge contract they gave him. He was an all-star player the year before. Then he stunk it up this year. Hopefully he bounces back. And then Corbin Burns of the Milwaukee Brewers. He wasn't bad by like any stretch. He was actually pretty good. It's just that he wasn't in his Cy Young form. And it's unfortunate, especially given how much they cheated him out of just $250K. And you know what I mean? Like, it was really unfortunate that the Brewers, not that they were right, they were clearly not right, but just, I expect a potential trade this offseason with Corbin Burns because he's probably not re-signing there. I think you made that abundantly clear. So that's a little bit of one. Jeff McNeil won the batting title last year. Apparently forgot that he won the batting title this year. I expect him back. And I wanted to say Teoscar Hernandez. This is a guy that I've been key on a lot, especially if you look at data. Not swinging at the same bad balls as usual, but he has been turning it up lately, as well as just the entire rest of the Mariners. Like, if we did this draft like a month ago, Julio Rodriguez would have been on here, and one of us would have been celebrating already. Like that's pretty nuts. So,
he leads the AL in hits. I was shocked when I saw that.
Amazing, today. Right?
Yeah,
I can't remember. He's on an absolute like one of the better like second halves I can remember. And maybe I'm just forgetting someone. I mean, recency bias, but my God, Julio, just. My God, he's killing it out here.
Yeah, fun draft idea too to maybe write down. Let's do the opposite. Regression candidates for 2024.
Oh yeah, there we
guys
go.
Who are just
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, write it down. The guys who are playing above their skis. Just a few more honorable mentions that I've written down. How about the NL Cy Young, the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner with Sandy Alcantara? I don't know what's happened to him in Miami this year. ERA above 4 just does not look like the same guy, and I don't really know the reason why. Almost drafted Paul Goldschmidt's teammate, Nolan Arenado, 32 years old, but I still think is in the prime of his career. And I don't know why he's taking a step back offensively this year. Like you said, I think it's just one of those things. I do think you can have a bad vibe where it just like trickles down through every player, where it just the whole organization just has caught this vibe where no one can play well. So I think that's kind of happened to the Cardinals this year. Teoscar Hernandez, maybe. I mean, he's going to be a free agent this year. He's not like the best player I've written down on this list, but I was like, I'll throw him down. And how about like a Bryce Harper, maybe? I mean, obviously because of Tommy John surgery, but he hasn't been bad this year. The numbers that's a
cheat. That's a cheat, and you know it. That's a cheat.
That's why I didn't take him. Nestor Cortez.
I got you.
Cheat maybe too. But I think that was really it. I don't think I really had anyone else. I put down Tony Gonsolin too. I mean, obviously he's hurt now, but he was not very good pre-injury this year for the LA Dodgers. So he's another potential bounce back. And how about one other guy, just because he was the hottest name on the offseason market, because he just kept re-signing new deals with new teams for $300+ million. They checked on that. He didn't look too good, but you look at his numbers this year, not very good. But Carlos Correa has been heating up at the plate over the last few weeks here, because I did pick him up in fantasy, and that's quite literally the caption: Carlos Correa heating up at the plate. So I'm just repeating what I read online. But yeah, he's a potential bounce back. I don't think I would draft him, and we didn't. But yeah, you could write him down as
I'm worried about the injury. I'm worried that 2 teams passed on him for an injury, and he had a bad year, which almost proves those teams right. So that's why I didn't pick him. But he's Puerto Rican, so I'll be rooting for him.
Yeah, let's go Puerto Rican power. That's it for this draft. Thank you for checking in on the Locked On Diamondbacks crossover with Locked On Padres. Don't forget to catch every D-backs and Padres pitch on your hometown broadcast when you download the SiriusXM app and either search up Diamondbacks or Padres. Javi, where can the listeners find you online?
You could find me at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, and at LO_Padres if you don't want my dumb tweets. And then Locked On Padres on YouTube, where you can comment, DM, wherever on all 3 of those. You could DM me on Padres, my personal account. Go for it. I'm always online. That's detrimentally online. So feel free to do that. And looking forward to doing play reviews and talking a little bit more about Bogarts and all that stuff that you got today, but in more condensed form. Maybe focusing on just one player at a time. It's that time, man. Player review season. Report card grades. Yeah, we're at that point, man. I think we're at that point. Not you, because you're in the postseason. So
I'm in the mix, baby. I never felt this before as the Locked On D-backs host. This is amazing. I can look at the standings.
It's great, right?
Oh my God,
it's so fun.
I'm not out of it. I'm not doing play reviews already. You're starting to outline them. This is a fantastic feeling. At Career Thomas 24 for the personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Another week, another draft with Javier of Locked On Padres. Until next week, when we do it all again, doses.